All right, howdy there, boys and girls. Mr. Trutna here. We're going to go over section 8.2. This is going to be reflection. So the question is, what does that mean? Reflections, okay? So in a very narrow sense, the word reflect means that it means to flip a preimage. Okay, so what you're going to do is whenever that you are asked to reflect a shape, you are going to take the preimage. Remember, the preimage is the original shape. And what you're going to do is you're going to flip it, okay? And you're going to flip it over a certain line, and the line that you flip your shape over is called the line of reflection. Okay, so what is the line of reflection? Well, it's the line that you reflect a pre-image over, like I just said, okay? Each point in the image is the same distance from the line of reflection as the corresponding points of the pre-image. Okay, so sorry, I had to walk away for a second. My nachos were done, and I had to go get my nachos before they burnt. Okay, so if you notice right here, what we're going to do in part A is we're going to reflect this four-sided shape, MDAW, over the x-axis. Okay, so here's my x-axis right here, and I'm going to highlight. You will notice when I do this worksheet, every time I'm going to reflect my line of reflection, I'm going to highlight my line of reflection. So I'm going to flip this, I'm going to reflect, or I'm going to flip this shape over the x-axis, okay? So how do we do that? Well, what we do is we key in on the vertexes, the corners of the shape. So if you notice, A is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from the line of reflection, which is the x-axis. So that means when I reflect it, A prime, which is going to be the image, has to be 1, 2, 3 spaces away from the line of reflection. So A prime would be right there. Okay, if you notice, D is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away from the x-axis, my line of reflection. So that means D prime is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away from the line of reflection. Okay, W is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from my line of reflection. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away, and W prime would be there. And then M is 5 spaces away from my line of reflection. So M prime would be 5 spaces away from my line of reflection. Okay? So I reflect each one of the vertices, each one of the corners of the shape, and then after we reflect each one of the points, what we do is we just connect, use a straight edge once again, okay? Don't just try to freehand sketch it here. We don't need any contour lines here where they're not straight at all, and we connect them. So that shape right there would be the reflection of that shape there, and it's reflected over the x-axis. Okay, we go to the next problem. You notice we have the same exact shape, but now we're going to reflect it over the y-axis. Okay, so here is my y-axis right here. So get in the habit of highlighting when you're doing a reflection. That means we're going to flip the pre-image, okay? Highlight whatever the line of reflection is, the y-axis in this case. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it means that each one of these points is going to reflect to the other side of the line of reflection, and it's going to be the same distance. So W is 1 space away from my line of reflection, so that means W prime will be 1 space away. So there's where W prime is going to be. Okay, M is 1 space away from my line of reflection, so M prime is going to be on the other side 1 space away. So M prime would be where D is. D is 1 space to the right of my line of reflection, so D prime would be 1 space to the left. So D prime would actually be right where M is. Okay, this one's a little confusing to draw, and then let's look at A. If you notice, A is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the right of my line of reflection, so that means A prime, 1, 2, 3 has to be 4 spaces to the left of my line of reflection. It gets flipped to the other side. Okay, then what I do is I just connect the points. So I'm going to connect A prime to D prime, D prime to M prime, and that's already connected there. M prime to W prime, and W prime to A prime. So you could see that my two shapes here, they overlap each other, but one is a reflection of the other. Okay, now the third example, you can see that we are reflecting over x equals 2. So my line of reflection is going to be the line that's created by the equation x equals 2. So how do we make that line? Well, we go to the x-axis, 1, 2, okay, and I draw a line that's going to always go through x equals 2. So that line right there that is highlighted, that's the line that makes up the equation x equals 2. That's my line of reflection. So what I do is now I'm going to reflect each point from one side of my line of reflection to the other side. So let's start with D. D is one space to the left of the line of reflection, so that means D prime is going to be one space to the right of the line of reflection. Okay, M is 1, 2, 3 spaces from the line of reflection, so M prime, 1, 2, 3 spaces from my line of reflection. Okay, W is 1, 2, 3 spaces from my line of reflection, 1, 2, so W prime is going to be 3 spaces from the line of reflection. And then if you see A is 2 spaces on the right of the line of reflection, so that means A prime is going to be 2 spaces on the left of the line of reflection. Okay, connecting my points to see what my image looks like from my pre-image. You can see that my image is the reflection of my pre-image, and it's been reflected over the line x equals 2. Okay? Okay, let's go to the bottom. Same idea. We have this diamond looking shape. Even though it's not really a diamond, it's kind of close to it. So my first part is I'm going to reflect over the x-axis. Okay, so my line of reflection is the x-axis. So here's the x-axis right here. I highlighted it. Try to get in the habit of always highlighting whatever you're going to reflect over. And now I'm going to move each point to the other side. So A is one spot below my line of reflection. A prime is going to be one spot above the line of reflection. S is 1, 2 spaces above the line of reflection. So S prime is going to be 2 spaces below the line of reflection. J is 1, 2, 3 spaces below the line of reflection, so 1, 2, 3 spaces above the line of reflection is where J prime is going to be. And T is 2 spaces below the line of reflection, so T prime will be 2 spaces above the line of reflection. Okay, so as you're taking notes on this video, if I'm moving too fast for you, remember you could always pause the video, you could re-watch the video over and over again until you understand the concept of what's going on, and that so A prime, J prime, T prime, S prime would be my image of my pre-image. You can see it's been flipped around and it's been flipped so over the x-axis. Okay, the next one, same shape, but now I'm going to reflect it over the y-axis. All right, so my line of reflection is the y-axis. So here's my y-axis. So if you notice, my entire shape's to the right of the line of reflection. So when I reflect it, my entire shape's going to be over here to the left. Okay, so let's start with J. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. So J prime is going to be 4 spaces away on the other side of the line of reflection, right there. J prime. T is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away on the other side of the line of reflection would give me T prime. A is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from my line of reflection. 1, 2, 3 spaces on the other side would be A prime. Notice the distance from the line of reflection from every point, every corresponding point is remaining the same. So S is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away. That means S prime, which is going to correspond with S, is going to be 4 spaces away, but on the other side of the line of reflection. And then I get out a straight edge. Okay, always use a straight edge when you're connecting points. Don't make it sloppy, Dylan. All right, I like how Dylan's using a straight edge right now, and we connect each one of the points. And we get our pre-image. So remember, our image. So this right here, the given shape, that's my pre-image. And then the shape that I reflected over is going to be called my image right there. Kai, do you agree? Pre-image, image? Good. Okay. All right, the next one right here. So now you can see our line of reflection is the line that's created by the equation x equals 1. So how do I make that line x equals 1? Easy. I go to the x-axis at positive 1, and then I draw a line so that that line will always have a coordinate, an x-coordinate of positive 1. Okay, and that's going to be my line of reflection. So I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to reflect it over onto the other side of my line of reflection. So A is 2 spaces away, so A prime is going to be 2 spaces on the other side. S is 1, 2, 3 spaces away, so 1, 2, 3 spaces away on the other side of the line of reflection is S prime. T is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away, so 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away on the other side of the line of reflection is T prime, and J is 3 spaces away, so J prime will be 3 spaces away. Okay, then you do exactly what Kylie Delk is doing. You get out a ruler or you get out a straight edge. Okay, do what Megan's doing. She doesn't have a ruler, so she's using her ID card, and then you connect each one of the points to get your image of your original shape, which is called your pre-image. So this shape, T prime, S prime, A prime, J prime, would be the image reflected over the line x equals 1 of the image T, S, A, J, Tashaja, or whatever you want to call it there. Okay, so that's the idea of reflecting right there. Okay, so let's just keep on moving on and let's just keep doing these problems here. So you can see in C, we're going to reflect over the x-axis. So that means my line of reflection is the x-axis. Here's my x-axis. So I'm going to take each one of these points and I'm going to move them so that they're the same distance from the x-axis, but on the other side of the line of reflection. So there's I prime. E prime would be right there. Okay, X prime, I think that's an X, looks like it. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces below. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces above the line of reflection. There's X prime. And Q is 4 spaces below, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces above the line of reflection. Okay, so then once again, after I reflect each one of my points, I just get out my straight edge and I connect them so that my drawing looks well done and professional. Okay, Caden, remember, straight edge to connect the points. And then also keep in mind the terminology that we're using is the original shape is called your pre-image, so there's my pre-image. The shape that we get after we do the reflection is called my image. Okay, all right, the next one right here, we have the exact same shape, but we're going to reflect it over the y-axis. So my line of reflection is going to be the y-axis on this problem here. All right, so I get out a highlighter and I highlight my line of reflection. That's my y-axis. So that means I, which is 1, 2, 3 spaces away from my line of reflection, I prime is going to be on the other side of the line of reflection, but the same distance, 3 spaces. Q is 2 spaces on the right of the line of reflection. So that means Q prime is going to be 2 spaces on the left of the line of reflection. E is 3 spaces to the left of the line of reflection, so E prime is going to be 3 spaces to the right of the line of reflection. And now if you, all right, we got a little background music now. So now if you notice, X is right on the line of reflection, so that means X doesn't move. So if it's already on the line of reflection, and then to reflect it, it stays right where it's at. Okay, so now what we do is we connect all the points together, and once we connect all the points together, we're going to get our image of our shape after we reflect it over the y-axis. Okay, so there we go. Trevor, try to make it nice and neat, and you can see we get that shape there. Okay, the third one right here, you can see that my line of reflection is going to be, I'm going to reflect over, I like how that's over, y is equal to -1. Okay, so how do I graph the line y equals -1? Easy. You go to the y-axis to -1, and that would be right there. You put a point where y is equal to -1, and then you draw a line going through that point so that no matter where you're on that line, you're always -1 spaces down from the x-axis. That would be the line y equals -1, okay? And so, yep, I'm in love with this shape right here. That's what we're about, okay? All right, so now I'm going to move all the points. I is one space below the line of reflection, so I prime is going to be one space above the line of reflection. E is two spaces below, so E prime is going to be two spaces above the line of reflection. X is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces below, so 1, 2, 4 spaces above the line of reflection. That's where X prime is going to be. And Q is 3 spaces below, so 3 spaces above the line of reflection is going to be Q prime. Darn it, my background music just ended. I was loving screaming over that. If you didn't hear that, there's nothing I can do about that there. All right, so every once in a while, you just have music playing in your life. All right, so now I'm going to connect the points so that it looks nice and good, and you can see what the image is going to look like after I reflect. Now, the lights are going off. Things are going good, and my nachos got burnt. So, all right, I'm loving life right now. That's going to be the image of my pre-image when I reflect over y equals -1. Okay? All right, so now right here we're going to write a rule to describe each transformation. So you can see the reflection is already done. Now it's a little hard to tell. How do you know which one's the pre-image and which one's the image? If you look closely, that G and the A, they have the little prime symbol. So this is going to be my image. This is my pre-image, okay? So what am I doing? Did I flip it? Yes, I did. What did I flip it over? Okay. Well, what we do is, if you notice, key in on a point. Let's look at R. R is one space away from the x-axis. R prime is one space away from the x-axis. W is two spaces away from the x-axis. W prime is two spaces away from the x-axis. So I think it's pretty safe to say, not safe to say, we absolutely know that there's my reflection right there. Okay, so I'm reflecting it over the x-axis. So the way that I could write it, I would write it like this. Reflect over the x-axis. You could literally write it out in words as if you were talking. Okay, now mathematicians are notorious for being lazy, so what mathematicians do, instead of writing the word reflect, they just use the letter capital R. Okay, so what does capital R mean? It means reflect. Why does it mean reflect? Because R for reflect. Okay, and then what they do is, kind of below the capital R, almost in a subscript, they would just write this, x-axis, okay? And sometimes they would put it in this weird looking parentheses there. I don't even know what that's called, those grouping symbols there. But how would we read this? R stands for reflect. Okay, why did I write x-axis? Because that's my line of reflection. Okay, all right, so then we have the next one right here. You can see we start with A-H-U-P. Okay, so a hoop shape right there, or a poo shape, or poo-ha, however you want to read it, going around. And then the image of it is over here. Here's my P prime, U prime, H prime, and what is that? A prime, sorry. Okay, so what's my line of reflection? Well, you could see right here, my line of reflection is that line right there. That's the y-axis, okay? So, how do we write a rule to describe that right there? Two ways you can do it. You could literally write the rule using words, okay? You could write the word reflect, use a capital R when you write reflect, reflect over the y-axis. That's one way that you could write the rule, or you could write it in the notoriously in what we call notation, okay? So I'm going to use capital R for reflect. Always use capital R for the word reflect, and then you're going to put this grouping symbol here, and then inside it you're going to write y-axis, okay? How does that read? Reflect over the y-axis, all right? And then we go to the last problem right here, and the problem's a little hard to read, so I'm going to have to zoom it out a little bit so you can see the whole problem at one time. Here we go, it's moving around, we got it. Okay, so in this last problem, we are going to list the congruent angles and sides. So you can see I started with a shape, and it doesn't matter which shape I started with, KHX, triangle KHX, and then I have another triangle here, A, and I don't know what that is, let's call it B, let's assume it's B. I have triangle ABC. Okay, so I want to list all the congruent angles. Okay, And then I also want to list all of the congruent sides. So what we're getting at here is we are saying, all right, when you reflect a shape across a line, so here's my line of reflection right here, I just highlighted it, all the angles stay the same. That match up with each other, okay? So what matches up with angle K, but over here in this triangle here? Well, if I reflected this shape, what K would land on top of what angle? That would be A. So we know that angle K is congruent to angle A, okay? How about angle H? What would angle H be congruent with? In other words, if I reflected this shape, where would angle H lie on top of? It would lie on top of angle B. So angle H is congruent to angle B, and then angle X is going to be congruent to angle C. Okay? Now how about the sides? So how about side KH? So if when I reflect this shape, this triangle, and I reflect it on top of that triangle, what would K land on top of? K would land on top of A, and H would land on top of B. So that means side KH is going to be congruent to side AB. Okay? How about side H to X? So what side, whoops, I said it H to X. So side H to X, what side would it be congruent to? Well, if I reflected it, where would H end up on top of? B. Where would X end up on top of? C. So that means side HX is congruent to side BC. Okay, and then lastly, what side am I missing of this triangle? I'm missing side, I did KH, I did HX, so I'm missing side KX. Okay, so what side would be congruent with side KX? In other words, when I reflect this triangle, what would K land on top of? A. Okay, what would X land on top of? C. So that means side KX would be congruent to side AC. Okay, so review this over, rewatch it, pause it, make sure you get all of the concepts down, and now pick up the worksheet from me, and best of luck to you guys.